This story is about an ordinary girl named Emily, who lived in a beautiful mansion. Emily's life wasn't very exciting. She was shy, always minding her own business, and didn't get into much trouble. Her mansion was her sanctuary, a big, lovely house surrounded by beautiful trees and flowers. It was the kind of place anyone would dream to live in. Emily's parents were well off, and they gave her everything she could ever ask for. But in spite of all that, something wasn't right in her life. It all started when Emily met Daniel. Daniel was a strange guy, but at first, no one really noticed. He wasn't ugly or anything, but there was just something off about him. He was quiet and reserved, just like Emily, which is probably why they got along. At first, they weren't close. He just hung around her at the coffee shop she visited every morning, a bit too often, but she didn't think much of it. He seemed nice enough, always giving her compliments and being overly polite. It started innocently. Daniel would smile and say how beautiful her dress was, or how lucky she was to live in such a big, beautiful mansion. He would always find something positive to say about her. At first, Emily thought it was sweet, maybe even charming. She hadn't had much attention from guys before, so it felt kind of nice to have someone like Daniel around, even if he was a little weird. As time went on, though, Daniel's behavior started to get unsettling. He started showing up everywhere Emily went. If she was shopping, he'd be there. If she was walking in the park, she'd catch him sitting on a bench, watching her. She'd run into him at random places around town, and even worse, sometimes he'd be waiting outside her mansion, pretending it was just a coincidence. But Emily was smart, she knew when something wasn't right. It got worse after that. He'd leave little gifts on her doorstep. Nothing too creepy at first, just flowers, chocolates, and love letters. But soon enough, those innocent gestures became more intense. He wrote about how he would do anything for her, how he would love her forever, how no other man could have her. Emily started to get scared. This was not normal anymore. She tried to ignore him, thinking maybe he'd give up if she didn't pay him any attention. But Daniel didn't give up. In fact, the more Emily avoided him, the more obsessed he became. He started following her more openly, showing up at her door late at night, begging her to talk to him. He said he loved her and that he'd never leave her alone until she was his. Emily was terrified. She tried to talk to her friends about it, but they just told her Daniel was harmless, that he was probably just lonely and misunderstood. Even when she went to the police, they didn't take her seriously. They saw Daniel as just some lovesick guy who wasn't really a threat. They told her he hadn't done anything illegal and there wasn't much they could do. Emily felt helpless. Things took a dark turn when one of Emily's male friends, David, who had been comforting her through all of this, was found dead. It was ruled as an accident, but Emily knew better. She had a gut feeling that Daniel had something to do with it. She couldn't prove it, but she just knew. Then, another guy she had been seen talking to a few times at the gym went missing. Emily was in full panic now, but no one believed her. The police still refused to see Daniel as a threat. He was always so calm, so polite when they talked to him. To them, he was just an innocent guy who was a little too in love. But Emily knew better. Every man she spoke to, every guy who showed her even a little bit of attention, ended up dead or missing. Daniel was possessive beyond belief. He wasn't just in love with her, he was obsessed. He thought he owned her, and he would eliminate anyone who stood in the way of that. Emily didn't know what to do anymore. She was trapped in her own life, in her own home, with no one to turn to. No one believed her. Daniel had found a way to make everyone see him as harmless, while he secretly eliminated any man who dared to come near Emily.